The serene landscape of Pahalgam, Kashmir, a place renowned for its breathtaking beauty and tranquil atmosphere, became the site of unspeakable horror. On April 22, 2025, a single brutal act irrevocably shattered the peace of this idyllic valley.
Tourists seeking the beauty and serenity of the region, drawn to its majestic mountains and lush valleys, instead found themselves face to face with unimaginable terror.
Gunmen, their faces masked by hatred, specifically targeted them, coldly asking, "Are you Hindu?" before unleashing a hail of bullets. The attack was calculated, designed to sow fear and division.
The brutal assault left 26 dead, their lives extinguished in an instant.
And 17 more were wounded, many critically, their screams of pain echoing through the valley.
In the wake of the attack, an idyllic valley, once a haven of peace, was transformed into a scene of unimaginable horror, forever scarred by the brutality it had witnessed.
The Resistance Front, a shadowy group with known links to the notorious Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorist organization, swiftly claimed responsibility for the heinous act.
India, with a history of similar attacks, immediately and unequivocally accused Pakistan of supporting and enabling the terrorists.
The accusation cited a long and painful history of cross-border terrorism, a constant source of tension and conflict between the two nations.
The initial shock and grief quickly morphed into widespread anger and outrage across India.
Demands for swift and decisive retribution echoed nationwide, fueled by a deep sense of pain and a burning desire for justice.
This brutal act was tragically no isolated incident.
Instead, it was a chilling reminder of a grim and persistent pattern of violence that has plagued the region for far too long.
Lashkar-e-Taiba's devastating legacy includes the horrific 2008 Mumbai attacks, a series of coordinated assaults that brought India to its knees.
And the 2019 Pulwama bombing, a suicide attack that targeted Indian security forces and further inflamed tensions.
These events and countless others have left unhealed wounds for India, scars that run deep within the nation's collective psyche.
Each and every attack has pushed India and Pakistan, two nuclear-armed nations locked in a perpetual state of animosity,
ever closer to the dangerous brink of a potentially catastrophic conflict.
The Pahalgam massacre was widely seen as a deliberate and calculated attempt
to further destabilize the already volatile region of Kashmir and to exacerbate the existing tensions in South Asia.
Predictably, international condemnation of the attack followed swiftly, with world leaders and organizations expressing their outrage and concern.
But this time, the stakes felt higher than ever before, with the potential for a full-blown conflict looming large.
The attack reignited old fears, dredging up the painful memories of past conflicts and the ever-present threat of renewed hostilities.
And it set the stage for a potentially dangerous escalation, pushing the two nations closer to a confrontation with unimaginable consequences.
The world watched with bated breath.
As South Asia teetered precariously on the edge of chaos, its future hanging in the balance.
The already fragile peace of Kashmir, a region long plagued by conflict and division, was irrevocably shattered, its future uncertain.
And the consequences of this brutal act, like ripples in a pond, would inevitably be felt far beyond its borders, impacting the entire region and the international community as a whole.
India's response was swift and uncompromising, a clear message that such acts of terror would not be tolerated. The nation stood united, demanding justice and a firm stance against cross-border terrorism.
Prime Minister Modi faced immense pressure to act decisively, to reassure the public and demonstrate India's resolve on the global stage. The weight of the nation's expectations rested heavily on his shoulders.
Diplomatic ties with Pakistan were downgraded, signaling a significant shift in the relationship between the two nations. The move reflected India's deep dissatisfaction with Pakistan's alleged role in supporting terrorism.
Envoys were recalled, a symbolic gesture representing the breakdown in communication and trust. This action further isolated the two countries on the international stage.
And borders closed, effectively halting all official movement between the two countries. This measure aimed to increase security and prevent further infiltration.
All visas were cancelled, impacting countless individuals who relied on cross-border travel for business, family, and cultural exchange.
Severing people-to-people contact, further widening the divide between the two nations and their citizens. The impact on ordinary lives was immediate and profound.
India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty, a bold and controversial move that threatened to disrupt the delicate balance of water resources in the region.
A move with serious regional consequences, potentially impacting agriculture, livelihoods, and overall stability in both India and Pakistan. The implications were far-reaching and uncertain.
The line of control erupted in sustained intense exchanges of fire, a stark reminder of the ongoing tensions and the potential for further escalation.
Pakistan warned of a larger Indian offensive, raising fears of a full-scale conflict and prompting international calls for restraint.
And put its military on high alert, signaling its readiness to defend its borders and respond to any perceived threat from India.
The subcontinent braced for escalation as both nations mobilized their forces and prepared for the worst. The atmosphere was thick with tension and uncertainty.
The world watched anxiously as diplomats scrambled to de-escalate the situation and prevent a catastrophic conflict.
As two nuclear powers edged closer to conflict, the stakes were higher than ever before, threatening not only regional stability, but also global peace.
The diplomatic chill quickly gave way to military rumblings, a dangerous shift that threatened to plunge the region into chaos.
The situation reached a boiling point. On May 6, 2025, a date that would be etched in the annals of history,
India, after careful deliberation and strategic planning, launched Operation Sindoor, a decisive response to the escalating threat of cross-border terrorism.
This operation involved targeted airstrikes, venturing deep into Pakistani territory, aiming to dismantle the very infrastructure that fueled the terror.
The primary targets were the well-known Lashkar-e-Taiba camps, notorious for training and dispatching terrorists across the border.
Beyond the terror camps, the strikes also focused on critical military infrastructure, aiming to cripple the enemy's ability to wage war and support terrorist activities.
This aggressive move signaled a major escalation in the conflict, a clear message that India was no longer willing to tolerate the status quo.
India's message was loud and clear. Cross-border terrorism in any form
would be met with overwhelming force, a response designed to deter future attacks and protect its sovereignty.
In a display of air power, fighter jets and drones struck with precision,
reaching targets near strategically important cities like Rawalpindi and Lahore, sending shockwaves through the region.
This action pushed boundaries further than before, indicating a significant shift in India's strategic approach.
The next day, on May 7th,
India escalated the conflict further, firing missiles at key Pakistani airbases,
dramatically escalating tensions between the two nations.
Predictably, Pakistan vehemently condemned the attacks,
denouncing them as blatant acts of war, further inflaming the already volatile situation.
However, the operation wasn't without its costs. Indian aircraft losses
and deeply concerning reports of civilian casualties began to surface, adding layers of complexity to the situation.
Conflicting news reports and biased media coverage further complicated the narrative, making it difficult to ascertain the true extent of the damage and the human cost.
The operation was undeniably bold, a clear demonstration of India's resolve.
But it was also fraught with significant risk and the potential for unintended consequences, threatening to spiral out of control.
The entire region teetered precariously on the edge of a wider war, a conflict that could have devastating global implications.
Pakistan categorically denied involvement
in the Pahalgam attack,
calling India's claims baseless.
Islamabad closed its airspace to Indian flights
and suspended all trade agreements.
Diplomatic expulsions further strained communication.
On May 3rd, Pakistan test-fired a new ballistic missile,
signaling its deterrent.
As Indian strikes began,
Pakistan retaliated with missile attacks on Indian positions.
The line of control became an active battleground.
Pakistan appealed to the international community,
urging intervention and restraint.
Both sides dug in,
each portraying the other as the aggressor. The world reacted with alarm
as India and Pakistan edged toward full-scale war.
Major powers and the UN
called for restraint and urgent de-escalation.
The India and Pakistan led diplomatic efforts,
with Indian and Pakistan diplomats
mediating behind the scenes.
After days of negotiations,
India and Pakistan announced a ceasefire agreement on May 10th.
Both nations agreed to halt military operations
and resume diplomatic talks.
The ceasefire brought relief,
but mistrust lingered.
Accusations of violations surfaced almost immediately.
The peace was fragile,
and the world remained on edge.
After the ceasefire,
a tense calm returned to the border.
Civilians cautiously returned home,
but military alertness remained high.
India's suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty
threatened future stability.
The core issues, Kashmir,
mutual suspicion,
and terrorism, remained unresolved.
Modi's government felt vindicated,
while Pakistan's military saw its fears confirmed.
The crisis showed
how close South Asia can come to disaster.
International pressure.
Not reconciliation held the peace.
The question remains,
Is this a step toward lasting dialogue?
or just a pause before the next storm?